A Nascent Kaleidoscope. Chapter 36. Zelretch quietly wiped his face with a piece cloth he pulled from wherever he stored things. Explain properly, he said evenly. Fine. I shrugged. It wasn't like I was just going to leave it there. The world I was born in, the original demons are all dead. The term Satan is used similarly as president or prime minister. There are 4 Satans, of which my biological father is one of. I'm actually descended primarily through the Baal and Gremory lines of Solomon's 72 pillars. I don't know how to handle this, Rin said flatly. If it makes you feel better, modern-day devils aren't much different than humans. They don't go around stealing souls or anything. Well, mostly, I'd rather not get into the whole mess with evil pieces. But they're honestly better than their demon ancestors. I'll freak out over this later then. Rin snorted. I'm pretty sure the church would go ballistic if they found out. Yeah, probably not a good idea to mention outside. The church does have a few monsters I would rather not tangle with right now. It would probably be worse than the world lines that the old man is a dead apostle. Wait, what? Rin blinked in confusion again. Not relevant right now. Zelretch cut me off. I believe we are getting sidetracked. Well, there isn't much more to my story. That was basically a month ago, and I found myself in a world I didn't recognize, but I was able to gather some resources and figure some things out. Curious. Zelretch looked thoughtful. I had some preliminary thoughts about such a phenomenon, but I had yet to truly put any effort into researching it as a plausible avenue. Why were you even looking into that? Rin asked. That's a good question I hadn't thought about yet. I was more concerned on the how, and hadn't even touched the why yet. Nice job, Rin. You really are perceptive. Zelretch stood up, moving towards a shelf in the corner, looking through a few books. The spider, he said simply. My eyes widened. I hesitated ever so slightly. That answer caught me completely off guard. I thought it through, and a realization dawned on me. Was I supposed to be some kind of weapon then? I balled my fists, gritting the words out, but there was an obvious amount of venom present. Watch your tone, he said stoically, staring down at me. I stood up, matching his gaze. Is that why you decided to finally take in a student? Is she another bullet in the chamber? Why did I have no memories of why I took Rin in as a student in my past life, unless it was intentional? I do not make disposable pawns. His words were direct and cut straight through all my rampant thoughts. Fuck! I knew that I knew it. Why am I acting like this? Jumping to conclusions is not something I do. It was just my old insecurities acting up. Zelretch was many things. A liar was not one of them. I calmed myself down. Let's hear everything out first. No need to just make assumptions with missing knowledge. I would like an explanation. Rin interjected, clearly unsure of what we were talking about. Have you not told her about the spider yet? I questioned him only for Zelretch to look slightly unsure. It was surprising to see that look, if only for a moment. I have not. I did not wish to burden her with something like that before she was strong enough. Yeah, he did care about Rin. I was jumping to conclusions here. I let out a breath I was holding in and fell back into my chair. The spider, also known as the ultimate one of Mercury, or just type Mercury, it exists in the same realm as the Crimson Moon, the strongest creature born from the planet it originates from. And Aristoteles, Rin whispered. What does that have to do with anything? Is it going to awaken soon? Artorias spoke for the first time in a while. You would have information on it based on the Grail systems. I muttered. Yes, it should be awakening by the end of next century if nothing interferes. There's an Aristoteles on Earth? Rin stood up, slamming her hands on the desk. Why did no one tell me about this? It's not widely spread. Zelretch spoke up. It was better to keep any foolish enough to approach it from getting ideas. I stood up again and started pacing around the room. I usually do my best thinking on my feet. Is the beast of Gaia active? And what about the White Princess? Arcuate is sleeping, and the beast is sealed for the moment. Zelretch responded. The beast of Gaia, the White Wolf, one of the planet's creations meant to destroy humanity. It had absolutely authority over human life, primate murder. It being sealed for now was good. A variable like that would be able to flip any boards we set up. Arcuate Brunestad was another. The White Princess, the last true ancestor, and the only thing on the planet that could claim the title of Archetype Earth, or the ultimate one of the Earth. When fully awakened with her power, she was something on the same level as the spider. It was basically a creation of the Crimson Moon, type moon, as a means to reincarnate onto Gaia without interference from the planet. Didn't work out in the end, but we got another powerful entity that could flip the board. How bad is the situation? I finally asked. All my simulations have either failed or resulted in a Pyrrhic victory. Zelretch admitted with no small amount of concern flashing across his face. Can someone please tell me what's going on? Rin sighed. I feel like everyone is talking around me. I looked at her, and then to Zelretch, who gave a small nod. It started when the age of gods began to decline. The planet foresaw that humanity would kill it in the far future, eventually living on its dead husk. It sought out the only other figure that could judge it, another celestial body, and the moon answered. That's where the story ends for most people, as they all know the tale of Zelretch defeating the Crimson Moon. What most don't know about is a prophecy into the far future, where on its last breath, Gaia calls to the other celestial bodies to purge humanity from its corpse. Type Mercury received the call thousands of years too early and crashed in the rainforests of South America, where it now slumbers. All data gathered so far indicates that the spider will awaken within the next 100 years or so. I've run countless simulations, creating new variables and planning new strategies. But it seems like everything I have done so far only manages to trade the whole of humanity for its destruction in the best-case scenario. Zelretch finished. Which is where I apparently come in. I sighed, rubbing my temples. You're a reincarnation of Zelretch, Rin replied quietly. It makes sense now. Zelretch smiled. Indeed. He looked over to me. I had a thought a few years ago about a me that wasn't bound to the same rules as I was. Rules. That was it. That was what I was missing. So obvious. Zelretch is the kaleidoscope. He has a certain authority that comes with that. Things I couldn't do while he still exists. He can choose certain possibilities and force them to come true. That is one of his greatest treasures. A timeline he views will become the true one among the infinite possibilities. That's why he has to simulate instead of simply watching. I'm not bound by the same rules. I lack your authority, but I can do things you can't. I shared a look with him. He apparently already thought this out. No wonder. I whispered. It's more than that. You aren't me, he smiled, almost grandfatherly. I'm not you. I repeated, not quite sure how to feel after hearing that. What are we but our experiences? You have my memories but haven't lived through it. You are you and I am me. He said gently. You will therefore think differently, do things I didn't, and thus come to different conclusions. I am not Kister Zelretch Schweinorg. I am just me. And I was okay with that. I guess it's too late to ask you for some training. I snorted in laughter. He smiled but shook his head. It would be best for you to develop without my input. Yeah, I already realized that. Well, fuck, I'm back to square one, but now the damn spider is hanging over my head. I guess that's why my memories end around here. How many other variables have you tried to introduce? I doubt I was the only thing he tried so far. Hell, I can only imagine he threw everything at the wall and hoped something stuck. Too many to count. He rubbed his eyes, looking much more tired than normal. I've wasted many resources with almost nothing to show for it. If you are here now, though, that means something worked, and how knows, maybe others may also come to fruition at some point. Rin was probably one of the easiest variables to introduce. A well-trained apprentice adept at the kaleidoscope would be invaluable. No wonder he had her sit in on this discussion. It was better for everyone to be on the same page. He truly does not do things for no reason. Even Artoria being here, no doubt he meddled with the Grail War somehow. Her noble phantasm would be invaluable in the future. A sudden realization hit me. The Holy Grail! Rin and Artoria both stared at me abruptly. That's why you helped create it initially, allowed for its creation, and why it persisted until now. No wonder that was another hole in my memories. Good! He nodded his head. It is as you say. I had to suffer that infernal contraption because it allowed us some minuscule success against the spider in some simulations. It was unlikely the counterforce would put any showing against the spider if this world wasn't worth saving. It was just removing its direct interference, and allow this branch to be cut from the tree. Being able to summon heroic spirits, servants, would be invaluable in the inevitable fight. What about the strategies from other world lines? There are plenty that managed to survive past the spider's awakening. He shook his head. This world line is not unique, but different than most. While either Gaia or Alea are usually favored, this one is almost even, just barely in Alea's favor. Most other strategies do not work because of this. You made sure this was the world line I popped into, didn't you? I stopped in my tracks and turned towards him. His lips curled up into a smirk. Well done. Since when have you been aware of me? He said he hadn't even began to experiment with whatever allowed me to exist. So when did he notice me? The first time you used the kaleidoscope. He didn't hide the truth. So, you know where to look for your future experiments then. I just nodded. I wasn't exactly upset. He was acting exactly as I would after all. It was a good world. The reincarnation cycle was much easier to meddle with since things like sacred gears were being reborn alongside human souls. I was willing to bet that was the system he piggybacked on to do this initially. Well, I guess you wouldn't mind supporting me with resources. What kind of grandfather would I be if I didn't give my little grandson some pocket change? He raised an eyebrow, and we shared a small laugh. Well, shit. Now I need to find someone else to teach me. Chapter 37. It didn't take much convincing, really none actually, to get access to grandfather's library. I guess he accepted that familial connection, so I don't really need to keep thinking about it like I have. I am not Zelretch. I have a large portion of his memories, but I'm just Wilhelm. I'm okay with thinking of the old man as my grandfather. He had quit the collection, not nearly as big as the library back at the college, but there was a lot more applicable to my situation. There were a few things I wanted to grab. I wasn't looking to thoroughly extend my repertoire, but I didn't believe in keeping things I already learned at a low level. Let's see now. His books are sorted by region, and there's a decent-sized section on Eastern arts. Ah, here we are. A book on Mayuji arts. Wonderful, this is exactly one of the things I was looking for. In fact, this may even be the book I recalled from my previous life. I'll need to do more than just take a cursory glance at it. That also reminds me, I need to gather a lot of supplies for talisman making and also create a good stockpile while I'm here. There are a lot of interesting and unique ways that talismans can be employed to further boost or amplify my other spells. You know, if you want to ask me questions, I wouldn't get mad. I saw Rin and Artoria sitting by out of the corner of my eye. They had been like this since Zelretch left for business, and I came in here to browse. Interesting, there are some sword techniques here as well. Grandfather really outdid himself on his collection. Should I also pat myself on the back? It's weird how familiar all of this is, but the details are just empty. Are you really a devil? I stopped, turning towards Rin, who asked. I took a glance at the cross adorning her neck. I found out about my heritage a little over a month ago. For most of my life I thought I was a normal human. If I recalled correctly, she was some manner of Christian, probably Catholic? Or Altiste, she was raised as such. Some ideas probably stuck with her even as she delved into magecraft. Does it bother you? I might as well cut to the point. No, I just don't know what to think. I never would have guessed I'd be meeting a literal devil before. Rin said quietly, her eyelids drooping. Did what you mean what you said about the old man thinking of me as a disposable piece? Well, crap. Did I make her feel like this because of my own poor words? Rin, why do you think you were even there to listen in on that conversation? I looked at her, but she showed no signs of answering, just dropping her eyes down. It's because we both trust you. I don't go around shouting my secrets to the heavens. I don't make it a habit of telling people that I'm a half-devil. I fully turned towards her, giving me full attentions. You are more important than you realize. How? I'm barely making progress on my research, and here you are mastering everything, and you haven't even had access to it for more than a month. She threw her hands up in anger. She shimmered down, voice quieting. What am I even doing here? Oh, did me being here make her self-conscious? Or perhaps I'm just the catalyst for all her bottled emotions coming to the forefront. Just how much stress has she been under this past few months? How many students do you think Zelretch has taken in his lifetime? I don't know, maybe a few dozen. She sighed. Try over a few hundred. Do you not understand how amazing it is that you are here right now? You have heard the stories about Zelretch's students, how they all turn mad or have a bad ending, correct? I saw her nod meekly, so I continued. Every student he's ever taken, and has had the potential to use the kaleidoscope, yet you are the only one to ever reach this point. Does Zelretch think of you as a piece to use? Well, sure. I'm piece, you're a piece, even he's a piece, whether we like it or not. We're all stuck on this chessboard, but that does not mean he doesn't care about you. Now, a disposable piece would not be privy to his secrets, not be told of what his plans are for the future and how bleak it was looking. You are one of his people. Take pride in that fact. She looked deep in thought. I just left it there for her to mull over, changing the conversation back to where it was previously. What about you, Miss Pendragon? Does my heritage bother you? I questioned, turning back towards the bookshelf. I do not see how it changes anything. I had non-human knights serving me during my rule. If I could survive Merlin being a half-incubus, I don't have any trouble being around someone who is a half-devil. Her tone even. Huh? Are those stories about one of your knights being a giant true? I turned around rather excitedly. I was quite the fan, but I didn't want to come off too strong. She smiled slightly, almost reminiscent. A half-giant, actually. She corrected. It seemed like a lot of that going around. Though I guess those with human blood are more prone to interact with humanity. He was quite gentle. He didn't like to hurt people and stayed away from the front lines. He liked to hunt the phantasmal species that invaded human villages. I remember meeting his parents once and was surprised to see them happily married. What about you? Rin interjected, sliding her knees up to her chest while sitting. What's a devil family like? I wouldn't know. Human mom died when I was young and I'm a bastard. Father never made an appearance. I shrugged. My parents died too. Rin said quietly, but I guess you already knew that. An awkward silence. She was being rather open with me. Now that I think about it, her time here was probably hard. I'm like 90% sure that one Shiro Amiya doesn't exist on this world line. How her Holy Grail war went, I have only guesses to work on. I think Artoria may be her only friend here. I could only imagine all the shit she's had to put up with here. Well, this conversation got depressing. I broke the awkward silence that was in the room. All right, I've decided. Decided what? Rin picked her head up. We're friends from now on. I just nodded to myself. Wait, what? Indeed, you have occupied the coveted third spot on my friends list. If you perform better, you may be promoted. What do you mean you decided we're friends? She stopped for a moment. What the hell do you mean third place? I'm all teased first place material. She flipped her hair back. Do you have any idea how many people would kill for me to be in their first place, that? She crossed her arms. Third place. She scoffed, but it wasn't hard to see that little up curve of her lips. Perhaps you should take notes from second place. I waved my hand towards Artoria. I saw Artoria's lips curl up ever so slightly. I can provide you pointers, Rin. When the hell did you two get so close? Maybe if you were a more attentive friend, you would have noticed. I shook my head, clicking my tongue. We have even shared each other's deepest, darkest secrets, like how Artoria steals your shampoo every morning. How dare you? Artoria stood up, scandalized. I told you that in complete confidence. You have been demoted to second place on my friends' list for this treachery. She turned towards her female companion. Congratulations, Rin, you have been promoted. It seems like the King of Knights can joke. You both are stupid, Rin muttered, a small smile on her face, and I heard Artoria give one of the cutest little laughs. Better not be stealing my shampoo. She grumbled, only getting a bigger smile from us. I ran my finger across several book spines, reading the labels before stopping on one that sounded interesting. Splitting the Sky. It was a martial technique from China. Interesting. Let's add this to the pile I'm taking. All right. No more adding stuff. I got enough to work on. I was going to be firm in my resolve. Damn my short attention span. Well, I got pretty much all the books I wanted. A few more I grabbed off the shelf while I was talking to them. What else? Basically, I just need supplies. Any equipment I can find on short notice that's worth taking? I could probably check out my grandfather's stockpile of mystic codes, but I don't think there's anything up to what I need. Sudden realization hit me. Hey, Rin, you're still the second owner of Fuyuki, right? Second owner, basically the hidden side authority for the designated area. Any outsiders had to come through her if they did anything in her territory, and she was tasked with watching over the ley lines. Yeah, why? She scrunched her eyebrows, seemingly trying to figure out my thought process. Well, Shit! If she wasn't, I would just ignore any other owner, but I already declared her my friend. I can't really cheat her now. Hypothetically, if there were items of value, ownerless in Fuyuki, how would you propose splitting such a bounty if I were to uncover them? Hypothetically. She narrowed her eyes. I would demand 70% in payment for whatever you start digging up in my territory. Damn, what a heartless bitch. I approve. 40%. 65%. 30%. What? You can't go back down. You know what? I feel like going on a midnight walk. I do so wonder where I'll end up. Perhaps a nice seaside city out east? Damn it, fine. 50%. 50%, but I get first pick. Humph, whatever. It's not like I'm doing any work. She huffed. What are you even getting? I don't think there's anything impressive there. The old man already confiscated all remains of the Grail. Well, since you already agreed, I would direct you to your companion who fought in the Fourth Grail War. I handed the floor over to Artoria. She just blinked at me in confusion. I recall my time in that war, but I do not know what you speak of. You don't recall a certain blonde archer shooting noble phantasms into the river, possibly deciding not to recover them for some reason? I smirked. Noble phantasms. Rin practically shouted. No. I demand a redo. No take-backs. I quickly opened up a portal and jumped in. I heard an angry shout on my way through, probably nothing important. Chapter 38. I stepped out onto the roof of one of the tallest buildings in Fuyuki, staring up at the bright moon in the sky. What a beautiful night it was! Breathing in the air of my home just made it all the better. I may have been born on that other earth, but I would forever consider this place my one true home. You know, when I was still a whelp, I once tried to fly to the moon. A smile crossed my face. How did that turn out? I got pretty high, until I couldn't breathe anymore and passed out, falling back to the earth. Luckily, I was still durable enough to survive, even if I wasn't all that strong back then. Okay, the thought was amusing, imaging a small drake trying to fly up into space, then crash back down. Why did you even try to fly up? A human told me a story about a rabbit living on the moon, and I was hungry. I paused as laughter escaped from my lips. I could even feel Drake laughing along with me. What were you doing that far east? I finally calmed myself. The story of the jade rabbit, or moon rabbit, whatever. There are several stories concerning rabbits on the moon, but they all originated around here. I liked to fly around in my youth, visiting everywhere. I only became famous after settling down in the British Isles for a while. You learn something new every day. With a smile on my face, I looked down towards the river that split the city in two. It didn't take much effort to open a portal down there. One moment I was high up in the sky, and the next I was walking next to the riverbed. It was surprisingly unpolluted for being a river in the middle of a city. If I had to guess, I think Rin may have had something to do with it. The city's nature would become worse if the river became disgusting, affecting all other aspects, including the ley lines. There were other aspects to consider as well, such as why the city had such a low unemployment and crime rate. Negative emotions festering can also be troubling for those who practice the magical crafts. So many little things that one must take into account when setting up a foundation for generations. It was a miracle that the corruption of the Grail was pretty much contained to only a small part of the city and was content to not spread out. Actually, there were so many little miracles that occurred here, I had to wonder if the old man did something. My memories in general were blurred when it came to a lot of things around this particular period of time, and I don't think this world line is one I was too familiar with. I don't know if that was intentional or just cosmic chance, but I only could vaguely remember the general outline of things, or some unimportant details. Stop! Drake spoke, as he practically stood up inside my soul. Something strange is around here. Curious, could it be what we're looking for? I don't know, but I can tell it's dangerous, like it especially hates me. Can you feel it? Like a prickling feeling on your neck, and your hair standing up on your arms. I stopped and sat down cross-legged, letting my eyes shut and trying to filter out all the other sensations in the night. I felt something, almost like a small thorn in my heart as I reached out towards it. I see it. I finally spoke. I stood up, facing the direction the feeling was coming from. With a sigh, I mentally prepared myself to dive in. Well, I need some new clothes anyways. I breached the surface of the river, swimming back over to land, tossing a couple objects onto the grass. Water breathing. I didn't think that spell would come in handy so soon. Quite a unique little piece of magic. Really made you feel uneasy, though, breathing in oxygen from the water through your skin. What a good haul. I admire the 2 weapons I managed to dredge up. Impressive. So these are noble phantasms. Yup, though only one of them has a legacy that remained over the years. The other is just a no-name spear. Don't get me wrong. It is something that could be called a heavenly treasure, but it just falls completely short when compared to the sword that left its mark on human history. The origin of these is a bit winded to explain. Gilgamesh, the first hero, in his epic he had collected all the treasures of the world, and that was conceptualized after his death into his noble phantasm, the Gate of Babylon. Basically, as a heroic spirit, his treasury houses every prototype of noble phantasms. The spear never was handed down, obscured by history. The other weapon, the sword, was different. It was the reason Drake could detect it so easily, why we felt uneasy near it. Ascalon, the sword that would later be wielded by St. George to slay a dragon. It possessed impressive anti-dragon capabilities, meaning that dragons were its natural enemy. The reason we could feel it as it was technically our predator, for now. You're going to make this sword yours? Of course. I favor a sword over the spear any day. And also, those were just its passive abilities. It could be activated by calling out its name. It held the title of Blessed Blade by which force is slain. It was almost an absolute defense, able to defend from all harm. What an amazing find. This will serve me well. Can't wait to see the look on Albion's face. Drake was feeling pretty gleeful too. You know, I've been cut by the Ascalon from my world. It isn't nearly this powerful. That one also contains what you call anti-dragon properties, but it's different. It exists more physically, whereas this is a miracle backed up by humanity's belief. Noble phantasms are crystallized legends. I would be surprised if your version could stand on equal footing. I mean, look at how the Excalibur there broke. I think Artoria would have a fit if I told her something like that. Era, I heard a voice coo from nearby. I was surprised at having not noticed another presence. What do we have here? I turned around to see a woman standing casually above me at ground level. Most of her figure was obscured by a large cloak. I was only able to see her blue hair flow out from under her hood. I knew who this was. I was just surprised she was still around. Curious, I thought Artoria was the only servant to survive the war. The woman, the Magus, stared at me for a moment before sighing. And here I thought I was going to have some fun. I guess you know that brat then, if you can spout Saber's name so casually. Well, we can still have some fun. I smirked. Oh my, saying something like that to a married woman, what would people think? Her smile was filled with the promise of death if I pushed down this path. Hey now, I'm no home wrecker. I held my hands up in surrender. I wasn't one to destroy loving relationships. Boo! She deflated, crossing her arms. Can't you be more slimy? Maybe threaten to capture me or something. I haven't stretched my legs in months. I mean, if you want to spar or something. I wouldn't mind testing myself against such an illustrious Magus. I offered. The moment's ruined. She pouted, flipping off her hood. So, who are you and why are you here? You obviously know the brat, but you look surprised when you saw me. She stared at me for a moment. She probably forgot to tell you anything. Not that I would expect anything different from that stupid girl. She sighed again. Oh, let me guess. You're looking over the ley lines in her stead, protecting the territory, and in return you get her protection as the second owner, dissuading any other magical involvement while also pulling on the ley lines to sustain yourself. Got it in one, boyo. You know I thought you would be more defensive about me being here. She waved her hand flippantly. You knew Saber's name. I don't think anyone outside of a select few know that. I suppose it's a possibility that you forced the information from the brat about her servant somehow. In which case I would have reacted accordingly. But then there is the fact that you bypassed all of my defenses, my bounded fields and familiars that lay all over the city, and I only know of a few possibilities. So you know she's apprenticed under Zelretch then. I just nodded along. She was a rather infamous figure in history, perhaps one of the greatest mages to ever exist. No doubt she could divine the reasons for how I was able to get through everything so easily without triggering her alarms. The kaleidoscope can bypass most means of magical detection after all. Obviously, she said curtly. So, Who are you and why should I care? Wilhelm Henry Schweinorg. Zelretch is my grandfather, and I befriended her in recent. I had the idea not long ago to check for discarded noble phantasms in the river from Archer. No use in hiding it. She already saw what I pulled up. She also didn't seem the least bit interested in them. Whatever, don't cause trouble here and disturb my home life, and we won't have issues. She turned around to walk away, but I spoke up again. How about I walk you home? I offered. She turned her head eyeing me. I wasn't kidding before. Kid, I have a husband. Well, fiancé, but same thing. I'm not going to abandon the man I love just because you flashed that cute smile. I promise my intentions are entirely friendly without any intentions of romance. I actually want to have a conversation. She was a magus that lived in the age of gods. When will an opportunity like this come again? All right. If you were lying to me, I would have blasted you back into the river. She shrugged. Actually, I am a bit curious about the magic of this era. I wouldn't mind having a discussion while I walk back. It is a bit away. Medea of Colchis, also known as the Witch of Betrayal. It might seem weird that I was being so friendly to someone with that moniker, but I knew for a fact that she wasn't needlessly cruel. She found her own happiness. She wasn't going to become some caricature of an evil witch for no reason. That's a shame. She would look quite good in a dress like that. Our talks took a strange turn. I know, but she's so stubborn. If I could just get my hands on Saber one more time. Medea cackled evilly. How have the sales been otherwise? A bit surprising that Medea has gotten into clothing design, but hey, if it makes her happy, more power to her. I get a few orders every now and then, enough to pay a few bills, but my darling pays for mostly everything still. The modern identification systems are very inconvenient for me finding work somewhere. She frowned. You can always contact Rin. The Mages Association no doubt has ways to get you an identity that the country recognizes. I offered, and be forced to owe her a favor. She looked at me like I was an idiot. The price was probably expensive for a service like that. I just shrugged. Well, how's your talent with men's clothing? Fair, I guess. Why? Well, I was going to start looking for a tailor here, and one who could work with exotic materials I bring back would be convenient. Gods know I need some new sweets. She raised an eyebrow. I expect payment for something like that. Of course, what do you take me for? Do I seem like a cheapskate? Well, this night hasn't been a complete waste then. I'll start thinking up some designs and start working on sketches. We approached the stairs leading up to the temple. She made her home/workshop. Well, here we are. Thank you for accompanying me home. Your presence wasn't as revolting as I assumed it would have been. And I may even welcome you back if you return. What a poisonous tongue she has. I'm a bit jealous of her fiancé right about now. Mistress, you're back. A figure walked down a few stairs to greet us. Oh, if it isn't my drunkard. Did you scare away more birds today? Medea said sarcastically. Your words cut deeper than any blade, mistress. He stated. I knew who this was as well. I didn't expect Medea to exist. But him to be here also? You guard the entrance. I eyed the man dressed as a samurai. His presence practically screamed, deadly, like a blade that would be drawn at any moment. I felt my blood boil, just being in his presence. I wanted to test myself against him. Of course, I keep out all who would intrude on my mistress's lair. Okay, he was fucking with her. I could tell by his tone and the way Medea looked at him in annoyance. And what if I insist on intruding? I took a step forward. Why? I would be forced to physically stop you. His eyes flashed. I could see the desire to fight as it mimicked my own. Interesting. Boys! Medea rolled her eyes. Whatever, don't destroy my yard, she said casually ascending the stairs. It's the temple's yard. The samurai spat back. Semantics, she flipped her hand, dismissing him. We both watched her disappear up above before turned back to one another. So, wanna fight? I asked. Please, I've been dreadfully bored. He materialized a sword in his hand. Good. I pulled out Mirage from my ring. I really wanted to fight you. I couldn't help but smirk as the air around him changed, ready for battle. Sasaki, Kojiro, the fake assassin servant summoned by Caster Medea during the war. Maybe this are the person I was looking for? Chapter 39. It was obvious that we were both looking for a fight here. Nothing malicious, but I think we could both tell what the other wanted almost immediately. A heroic spirit, even a fake one, wasn't something to be trifled with. The man who encompassed the legend of Sasaki Kojiro enough to be summoned as a wraith. He was donned in samurai garb and had a long sword in his hand. Actually, I don't think long does it justice. It was longer than even my mirage by a good amount. It looked deceptively brittle, like all it would take was a simple swing to shatter the thin piece of metal, yet I knew without even relying on any past knowledge that the blade was more than enough to slice through steel without issue. I flipped my hand over, bringing out my own blade, its light humming softly under the moon's glow. "Nice sword," he complimented, taking a step forward. "Thanks, I put some work into getting the materials for it to be crafted." I smiled, mimicking his movement. "Well, let's test it, shall we?" He smirked, practically disappearing from his spot, only to appear overhead, bringing his sword down. My eyes dilated as I instinctively cast reinforcement and ebony flesh, a much higher tier version of oak flesh. I brought up Mirage to meet the choreographed attack. It was nothing more than a greeting, yet the stones beneath my feet cracked and my arms shuddered. I was a half-devil in strength with a dragon's heart and multiple strengthening spells on me, yet he was overwhelming me in strength. As expected of a servant, I couldn't help but smile brightly as the desire for battle grew. His feet touched the ground briefly as his hands readjusted on the grip of his sword, pushing mine down as sparks flew, maneuvering enough to try and stab me over the edge of Mirage. I quickly pushed it off, narrowly dodging the tip of his blade from piercing through me. I took a step forward to make use of his overextension, but I found the tip of his blade in front of my eyes once again. I was forced to abandon my attack, bringing up Mirage to block, the force knocking me back a step. He casually withdrew the sword to his side, lightly holding it in one hand, practically goading me into attacking. "Well done, you have a good danger sense. But what if I do this?" As the words left his mouth, his blade was already next to my head. My eyes widened in surprise as I frantically brought up my sword to block, even using my other hand to push against the flat of my own weapon to hold against the attack. I was able to hold, and this time for sure I had an opening. I pushed my sword down the edge of his, keeping it away from me, only to find no resistance, and his sword once again right between my eyes. My hands moved faster than my thoughts, Mirage deflecting the narrow tip. He didn't follow up the attack this time. "Oh ho, you do have a little bit of skill. I thought you would get too confident after blocking my first attack and miss my follow-up." He gave no indication of an attack, merely his arm moving and his blade sweeping towards me, so fast that I barely kept up with each successive parry or block. How many moves did he initiate? I couldn't give it even a moment's worth of thought, or else I would miss the gleaming edge that seemed to snake its way into any opening I made. I couldn't help but furrow my brow as I looked for openings. Regardless of how nonchalantly he stood there, I couldn't predict an avenue of attack. I suppose I would need to make my own. Maybe I can disrupting his foo. No, I just now realized he hadn't moved from the spot he started in. I see. So this is the difference in realms we are in. I would need to do something to change up the pace if I wanted any hope. With a step forward, the ground shattered as I exploded forward. His weapon had longer reach. That meant I would have the advantage closer up, or so I thought. As I made a slash upwards, he slammed the hilt of his sword down, knocking my blade into the stone and stomping on it, following up with a quick cut towards my neck. I had no choice but to jump back, letting go of my weapon. "Oh, you decided to abandon your sword so quickly." He slowly knelt down, picking up my sword. I tensed as someone else grabbed my weapon for the first time. "What a good sword." He swung it around, watching the effects of the light in the air. "It's a shame that its owner can't do it justice." He smirked, tossing it back to me. His words caused me to frown. I took in a deep breath, catching my sword from the air. 3 birds. I swung out. The sword phantoms manifested. He looked slightly surprised as the sword practically bent to intercept them, a testament to his true speed, but I was already upon him. My horizontal swing met his blade. He blocked, pushing my sword to the side. This continued. My stab was caught by the tip of his blade and deflected. My overhead slash was sidestepped and knocked away. Every attack I made was countered with the most minimal effort or to utterly keep me off balance. I at no point could grab and hold on to any momentum in this spar. He controlled me completely from start to finish. He just smirked at me when I grabbed some distance again, taunting me to enter his range once more. I centered myself. I was angry, but I don't think it was at him. I was dissatisfied with myself, as all my flaws were becoming more and more apparent each time our swords met. Call me petty, but even when I knew that I had no chance of winning this duel of blades, I wanted to at least see him bleed. I took a stance, my sword held by both hands in front of me. He seemed to notice a change. His own eyes narrowed, and his grip tightened. Swallow returns. I attacked. It happened so quickly, a stab both from the front and back, an attack that should be nearly undefeatable yet. I lost, I said quietly as the tip of my sword fought against the flat of his blade. He held the sword over his shoulder, stopping me from piercing him from behind. He stopped them both. He killed the me that stabbed from the front, making the me from behind the real one, and only had to block one attack. Doing that in the split second that was required. What a monster. What a scary kid, attacking me from the front and back at the same time. He laughed, pulling his sword away as I let up. Really? You of all people are going to say that? I raised an eyebrow. You played around with me like I was a child. I just shook my head. Your attacks could be described as nearly textbook. He looked at me intently. I could tell right away you don't have much actual experience fighting with or against a sword. You probably rely mostly on your magecraft or superior physical abilities. Yeah, I realized that myself. I just sighed, being seen through so easily. I usually could just overwhelm most opponents I've met in the past. That last attack of yours was pretty good, though. He praised with a smile. Good name, too. He laughed. Yeah, I named it after yours since it inspired me. An attack that replicates magic, so I did the opposite and used magic to replicate a sword. Interesting. He tapped his finger against his chin. It was flawed, though. I saw several openings in the attack that I could make use of. I just went with the most direct method of countering it. I couldn't comment on any magical aspects, but it looked very immature. It is a relatively new development. I said evenly, giving him another once-over. Actually, I was looking for a teacher. Oh. He looked surprised. And you thought of me? The thought crossed my mind. I don't know if you would be open to the idea. Well, that depends. How keen are you on spending your life trying to cut a bird in the mountains? He smiled. I had no formal teacher myself. I don't think I could pass on anything of worth. Besides, it seems like the blade isn't your true path. You are clearly adept enough in magic. Why do you care about swordsmanship? I don't have a reason in particular. I just like using a sword. I shrugged. He laughed again, sheathing his blade. That isn't the worst reason I've ever heard. Well, it seems like you need to find someone who has both martial might and magical knowledge that can guide you. Martial arts and adept at magecraft. Who the hell had that in this era? It hit me like a tidal wave as I realized just who I could seek out. Thank you. I bowed in respect. All right. He waved me off. It was a good time waster. You don't need to thank me. How about a drink then? I offered. Well, if you insist. He accepted happily, as I took out a crate of mead I had kept from Skyrim. There was much more where that came from as well. If there was anything in abundance, it was mead and wine there. Western alcohol, is it? He admired one of the bottles before flicking the top open and taking a drink. What an interesting flavor, very light and a nice honey taste mixed in. He nodded in appreciation. Can I bribe you with more spars in the future then? I opened my own bottle to take a sip. Bring me enough sake in the future, and I would even teach you my greatest technique. He replied without hesitation. Seriously, it gets really boring here and the witch won't buy me any more. Chapter 40. I popped back into the clock tower, specifically the library, where I had disappeared from earlier. It seems like Rin and Artoria had cleared out. It wasn't all surprising. I seemed to have lost track of time, and a few hours had already passed. Why did you challenge that servant with purely swordsmanship? I heard Drake ask me. I wanted to test myself. I looked down at Mirage still in my hands. If I am going to do something, I'm not going to half-ass it. I needed to see where I stood relative to someone who reached the peak. Unfortunately, he was so far away I couldn't even do that properly. It just went to show how much I have to learn. Just because I was disappointed in my showing didn't mean I was going to get depressed. If anything, I had a bit more drive now to improve myself. Failure is a part of life. I just gotta not let it affect me for too long and keep carrying on. Interesting. I've never had a wielder become a master with the blade before. I can see the truth in the samurai's words. You don't have any experience. You were mostly relying on your memories to know how to attack and such. Yeah, he treated me like a child flailing around a pointy stick. I've just been forcing my way through every issue, either through superior magical prowess or just pure throughput power. I wasn't one to shy away from my own faults or failures. Magic and sword, each one takes a lifetime to truly master, yet you are intent of using them both. Well, I have a long life ahead of me. It was a strange thought to the 18-year-old me, the fact that I was at least going to live 10,000 years if nothing happened. What's that saying? A journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. May as well start now. I have nothing but time on my side. So where are you going from here? The servant gave me an idea to pursue. While grandfather can't train me, he can help me find someone who can. It's just going to be a bit tricky even for us. My lips curled upward. Tell me, have you ever heard of the immortal which have done scathe? Well, you don't aim small. This is good, though. My wielder should have this much courage. Yeah, one doesn't possess the title of God Slayer without good reason. Thoughts for later, though. For now I found myself the guest room in the old man's building and collapsed onto the bed. You know, I generally do enjoy cooking. It's a bit calming. Don't get me wrong. I'm not what someone would call an expert chief, nor am I someone content to cook his every meal. But the times I do pick up the spatula, I do enjoy it. The sound of eggs sizzling was refreshing, and the smells were wafting throughout the house. I'll need to get some other supplies at some point to keep with me, maybe some mobile cooking equipment. And rice. I haven't had a good Japanese breakfast in a long while. In general, I need to stock up on modern-day amenities. You made breakfast? I noticed Rin walk out of her little area, flanked by Saber. Yeah, figured it would be a decent apology for disappearing so long last night. I did feel a little bad about getting caught up in my own things. Who cares about your smelly apology? I want my noble phantasms. Rin huffed, sitting down. Rin is cranky in the morning. Artorias said lightly, sitting down next to her. Well, if someone didn't wake me up at this ungodly hour, I wouldn't be cranky. It is past 8. My knights would have been up and training hours ago. Rin just grumbled something ineligible and began digging into the food I set on the table. This is good, thank you. It was amusing how she can be both cranky, yet polite. I did pick up a couple noble phantasms last night. I commented idly, finishing up everything and joining them at the table. I'm sure she was waiting for this anyways. Show me. Rin sprang up, clearly awake now. Fine, fine. I waved my hand, letting the spear set on the table. She stood up, grabbing hold of it, bringing it up for inspection. Even Artoria eyed it with obvious interest. It even has a presence to it. The King of Knights marveled. I would have thought it might have dimmed after being lost in the human world for so long without an owner, but the power still radiates. That would be a fair assumption. An ownerless noble phantasm isn't exactly something one can determine due to the absolute scarcity. Who knows if the noble phantasm would even exist in a few more years? Their nature makes them rather finicky, and it's impossible to actually test such a thing. Rin reluctantly handed it over to Artoria for further inspection. Good spear. She balanced and waited before setting it back down gently. And this one is mine. Rin looked over to me expectantly. Yup, all yours. She made a small noise of approval, practically hugging the thing. What about yours? She looked back to me once the immediate love of her new weapon wore off. I pulled out my new sword, showing it around the table. Artoria unconsciously reeled back. Dangerous, she said quietly. Similar reaction to Drag, amusing. But yet even I could feel the effects, and I wasn't as dragony as they were. Ascalon, I said with a bit of pride in my voice. Wielded by St. George to slay a dragon, it has impressive anti-dragon properties. No fair. Rin pouted. Well, you could have none right now. I just shrugged. If it weren't for our relationship, I would have said nothing and just excavated them by myself. I don't wield a spear regularly, but it's not like I would pass up a noble phantasm. It is a good sword. I was taken back by its first appearance. I would be reluctant to face its wielder in battle. Artoria gave her honest appraisal. Impressive. A new voice joined the discussion as Zelretch walked in. And I see you made breakfast for everyone, thank you. His calm voice was quite a bit different than our first meeting. There was no looming pressure, it was gentle as if he was trying not to break anything around him. It does bring up a question, though, the old man said, pulling up his own seat and getting himself a plate. Does it not feel uncomfortable with that dragon in your soul? I sucked in a cold breath, while Rin and Artoria snapped their heads towards me. A dragon in my soul? What nonsense are you talking about? I replied without a second thought, my expression betraying nothing. No point, you're busted. I chose to ignore Drake and pretend I had no idea what Zelretch was talking about. There was speaking of my secrets to confidants, and then there was just revealing all my trump cards, which I would have to show a thing or two eventually, but I would keep some things close to my chest. Nice try, old man. Ho ho, deny it all you want, I know the truth. He smiled widely. I had some time to take a peek at world you were born in. It was quite interesting. He rubbed his beard. It has given me quite a few ideas, and I have a clue as to how we accomplished such a daring experiment. Did you simulate it fully? I changed the subject away from Drake. No, there were some variables that started to appear a few years down the timeline that you would be born to that made some things foggy. More research would be required. Well, I did have a pretty good idea of what would happen, so it means that he would succeed at some point. What's this about a dragon in your soul? Rin wasn't one to mince words when she didn't have to. Let me talk to them. No way. A dragon in my soul? I have no idea. I replied nonchalantly. By the way, old man, I have an idea about something and I need your help. Oh, what could you need my help with? Zelretch looked at me, a small smile on his face. Does it have anything to do with the dragon in your soul? I could feel my eye twitching, and I held back the urge to respond with something sarcastic. He clearly wanted to poke at it. I want to go to the land of shadows. I didn't mince words, better to just get straight to the point. There was a small clinging sound as Zelretch set his silverware down. I don't think I need to remind you of what that entails. I'm aware of the difficulties. I nodded. Isn't that where the teacher of C.U. Chulin lives? Rin chimed in. Yup, the teacher of the lancer you fought in the war. She is a master at spearmanship and runecraft. She is perhaps the best teacher I could ask for considering my circumstances. No doubt she is proficient in all forms of combat. Even if she hasn't mastered a sword, she can teach me to use a weapon well enough. Same for other forms of magecraft. She could probably teach me how to battle with what I already know. The only issue is getting there. The land of shadows. Does such a place still exist with the advent of humanity's era? Artoria asked. Yes. Zelretch answered simply. It is one of the few places that is technically still attached to the world that mystery still holds dominance. Then why do you need help getting there? Shouldn't you be able to use the kaleidoscope? Rin turned to me and asked. Yes and no. It's a bit hard to explain. I tapped my finger against my chin for a moment. The land of shadows no longer exists on the time axis and holds just the smallest connection to what we consider the world still. There are no physical entrances remaining, but it still exists without having been forced to the reverse side. Think of it like a fly, buzzing around everywhere. While we can technically catch it via the kaleidoscope, it is infinitely harder than merely stepping over to another world that can be calculated precisely. Zelretch added, the materials to construct the required gateway to connect to the land of shadows aren't going to be the easiest to obtain. I have some with me, but I have quite a few materials I gained from that world I visited. It should fill in several holes you're missing. I cut him off, mentally going over the medals and other stuff I still had in my ring. Rin actually took out a paper and pen and was writing a few notes. I didn't begrudge her. If I were still learning the kaleidoscope from scratch, I would hoard every scrap of knowledge that came up. I see. She looked up with some understanding. Time and space no longer hold sway there. The gate isn't merely connecting 2 points in space. It crosses over the time axis as well. Otherwise the return time wouldn't be close to the when you initially left. Like a tether, if the realm was still bouncing around, it would at least be stuck within a certain margin that allows for some means of calculations. Because the position of the realm is erratic, using this gateway, you can isolate it unto something resembling coherence. We can plot certain points and determine that the realm exists within here. It won't be perfect, but it will be enough to find your way there and back without too much deviance. Otherwise, you're basically blind jumping, which would not end well. I was about to explain it, but Rin apparently beat me to it. I shot a look over at Zelretch, who just nodded with a small hint of pride on his face. I don't think I could have said it better myself. Well done, continue. Zelretch ushered. Rin looked a little unsure of herself, but kept talking. The most important piece would be something to sustain that kind of powerful connection. She seemed a little pensive, like she was deep in thought. I'm sure the old man could do it, or even use his sword as a battery, but I doubt he would want to stand there for so long. Otherwise, something is needed that can not only sustain that kind of power being transferred and maintained, but would also not break down under the constraints that a realm operating with mystery would present. I don't know how the world will react to such a large influx of mystery, but I doubt it would be pleasant. Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Zelretch gave a small clap. You have made marvelous progress on your studies so far. I think I saw Rin blush ever so slightly. It is almost exactly as you said. We require a powerful item to maintain the connection, taking into account all those variables. Well, there is also the option of using disposable materials, but the amount of resources we would have to throw at that. He rubbed his chin in thought. Well, I scratched my head, wincing and pulling out one of my other trump cards. I do have this. I presented the Staff of Magnus. The power that swept over the room was impossible to ignore. All eyes fell on the staff I set on the table. I didn't want to reveal this, but it appears as though I don't have much of a choice. I need this badly, more so than keeping one more card hidden. That would do it, Zelretch responded, not missing a beat, completely ignoring the sudden torrent of power that washed over everyone.